Welcome to the Moto Marketing Podcast, presented by RacerX, the podcast for moto industry professionals, entrepreneurs, and riders. If you want to grow your brand and business in today's digital-first world, you have to know how to turn a stranger into a fan, turn a like into a customer. You have to know how to turn attention into dollars. This podcast is dedicated to keeping you in the know on real marketing tactics that work in the moto world so that you grow your business and help grow the sport. Get ready to learn from the very same marketing experts trusted by RacerX, Lucas Oil Pro Motocross, GNCC, and NBC Sports. They'll help you navigate the world of digital marketing for your moto brand. This is the Moto Marketing Podcast. Presented by RacerX.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Moto Marketing Podcast, another holiday special. We got a special guest for you guys today. I think you'll enjoy this, especially if you're looking for ways to just improve your marketing plan and your website, primarily for this episode, to sell more of your moto gear or any of your moto products, whatever it may be. Maybe you're a motorcycle dealership. This is going to be a good episode for you. Hey, before we dive in, be sure to go to racerxonline.com/moto marketing to find out what the latest promotion is that RacerX has going on. They've got some great holiday stuff going on right now. Be sure to jump over there and check it out. I'm excited to bring this guest to you because he not only does he work for me, he's become a really good friend of mine over the years. He's our longest standing employee. Mike, you'll confirm here in a minute, but I think he's been with us for 8 years. Is that right? 7 years, almost 8.
Yep.
So Mike's been with us for a long time. I have Mike, or we call him Mikey Hudgins, with us today. Mike has had multiple roles since being here. He started as an intern several years ago, and now he is our communications and web director. He's in charge of, obviously on the communication side, just making sure our clients are taken care of and communicated to properly. But also the website of things, he's doing conversion rate optimization for our clients, helping them increase their checkout value and revenue. He's designing websites with our web team, just a lot of different things. So, Mike, I appreciate you jumping on with us. You're one of, I think, you might be the fourth in-studio guest. We had a long way to walk. You and I walked about 26 feet to get over to here. So welcome to the show, man. I appreciate you being on with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Mike, so let's first start with this. You've been with Impakt, you said, for 7 years, right?
Yep.
It's been a hell of a journey. You've seen a lot of different iterations of this company. We've been quite the shit show in the past when we were young. We didn't know what we were doing. I learned how to be a boss as we grew, and you've been through that evolution. So first off, I appreciate you sticking around as long as you have. You're making a difference in a lot of clients' lives now, and I'm glad we didn't run you off, man.
Thank you. Yeah, I genuinely like working here, and thanks for having me on the show.
So Mike is extremely intelligent, and over the years has gotten really good at one thing in particular, and that is bringing the information in his big brain to a capacity that you guys can understand it. Mike might talk over your head a little bit today. That's why I'm here. I'll catch it, and then he can break it down for you. So let's dive in. So Mike, obviously you work with our clients. Primarily all of them are in the moto dirt bike racing space. So what we're doing on these episodes is just giving people some things that they can keep in mind when determining what they're going to do next year for their marketing. So, for somebody that knows they're not doing the best job and they're saying 2022 is my year, I'm going to sell more of my helmets, I'm an online e-tailer, and I know we're doing things wrong, or maybe I'm a motorcycle dealership and we're going to take it online. And they're going to start focusing on that next year. What are a couple things before they put the cart before the horse that they need to keep in mind when developing their online strategy moving forward?
Yeah, so the generalized advice that I like to give people is to keep the friction on checking out as low as possible. So, that means developing with, mobile first, obviously. it's been like that for a while, since basically the first iPhone came out. In fact, the early days, when I first started working with you, a lot of our business was coming from people who had websites that weren't like phone compatible, and like that was the primary reason they came to us. But not just that, it's also making sure your site loads as fast as possible. Amazon's done some really good studies that shows like for every fraction of a second that your website takes longer to load, then it decreases your conversion rate. But it's not just that, it's also all the UI decisions, all the decisions that you make on designing the site needs to like serve getting the person to check out as fast and easily as possible. That's where you got to take the objective of what you're trying to do and serve that objective. And most of the time for us, it's on the e-com side. It's on getting people to reach that thank you page as easily as possible.
Yeah.
And that's what I do with the conversion rate optimization too, which we can go into later and stuff like that.
So with that, and we can go into that now. I think a good analogy for that is when Mike and his team are developing a site or taking a site that was in existence before they became a client and making it better, the thing that they're doing, I always use the grocery store analogy, but I can use the motorcycle dealership analogy. If you've ever been in a motorcycle dealership that knows what they're doing, where's the parts counter? Well, it's not right when you walk in. My analogy with the grocery store is the milk and the eggs, probably the most common thing people need. It's not right when you walk in. There's a reason for that. Yeah. Everything in that dealership is laid out. They take you on a journey so that you have the best point of actually buying more than just that bolt or that spark plug that you need.
Yeah,
you have to go to the back to get that. So, Mike, with a website, it's really similar, right? Like there's a journey that people go through.
Yeah, exactly. And even Google does that with if somebody goes to have lunch there, right? They have all the healthy food closer to you, so you have to reach over to get the less healthy stuff. And there's there's a lot of research that shows the easier you make things, the more likely it is that people will choose to do the decision that you want them to do, whether that's going you have to go to the back to buy some milk, and then you have all the the store arranged in a way to maximize your cart. So that's a separate point on add-on items and stuff. Getting those one-time offers on a website is kind of like you pass by on your way to the back to get your milk, and you get all those things in the middle. Have all the sales
Reese
and
cups
stuff
on the way out.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
on a website though, one of the things, so we have a service, we call it conversion rate optimization. Now, obviously, yes, we'd love for you to buy from us, right? Become a customer, that'd be great. That's not the point of this episode. A lot of what we do, if you're a small business and you can't afford a marketing provider, you can look at this stuff yourself and make these adjustments. That's why we're doing this. So conversion rate optimization, we call it CRO. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's adjustments made on a website to help increase the chances of people buying your product and more often than not, buying more than just what they came there with the intention to buy, increasing their average order value.
Sure.
What are some things that make a really big impact on a site that has a terrible conversion rate versus one that is doing really, really well? What are some things that stand out in your mind when you're looking at a client's website for the first time, your go-to things?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's a really broad question, so it's really hard to narrow down and say these are the most common things. But I would say that the lowest converting websites that I've seen are ones that take a long time to load, which I know I said earlier, have really clunky, confusing UIs, aren't mobile friendly, so you have to do the two-finger dance to scroll in, zoom in, and do everything on their site. But not just that. There's also a lot of good research you can do on determining what type of sales and deals that you can do on your site to convert people. For example, I've seen on certain sites when I've tested it for certain customers, maybe a 20% off discount code gets outperformed by a free shipping discount code, even though for most users the 20% off would be a higher monetary value. It would decrease their cost more. The conversion rate still goes up more for some sites for free shipping. So just knowing what type of discounts, what type of sales like impact the user behavior the most, that's another thing that's easy for you to test. If you're getting even if you're just first getting into it and you're getting 100 people a month, 1,000 people a month traffic wise on your website, you can test like the viability of different deals just by changing like a homepage banner. Your banner on your homepage that has like, or your slider or whatever that, that has like different coupon codes on it. So there's a lot you can do about conversion rate, average order value, and all that stuff. But that's what I would say the biggest.
What are some of the biggest mistakes people are making that they don't even realize? And I'll throw one up for you. The pop-ups when somebody visits a website. Yeah. So like let's take that and kind of run with it there. Like it looks great. People are like, I'm advertising, I'm marketing, look at me. And really they're actually hurting themselves.
Yeah.
So I guess let's start with that and go anywhere else you want to go with it.
Yeah, so a lot of the best ways of driving traffic currently, for example, between Facebook and Google and all these different advertising platforms that you can start with to kind of get traffic to your site, they will penalize you for having, pop-ups. So you might get some people to subscribe to your email list. Like if people didn't sign up using those pop-ups, then people wouldn't put them there. So I understand why business owners want to do that, but there are other ways more organically that you can get people to do that. Like for example, you can ask people to opt into your newsletter or your sales email stuff on your way out on checkout. So you could do it on the checkout page, and you could even just embed it in the home page. Like it doesn't have to be a pop-up. It could be like just a sign up box that's right below that slider at the top of your website. So if it's really important to you to have a lot of email people in your email list, then there are other ways to do it. That's the summary of what I'm trying to say. The pop-up thing is really common. We see that a lot, and it's just it's not great that they get penalized for the traffic, and it's a net loss for the business most of the time.
Yeah, I think something to keep in mind as you're hearing Mike talk about this. So other than, all right, he works for Luke, who is this guy? Well, some of the things that Mike has done, Mike has, from a website perspective, he designed several of the Pro Motocross track websites. He designed Redbud. We've done Motocross of Nations, which is another one of Redbud's. So we did, the first time they were there a couple years ago, and then they're coming back. Mike's in charge of that. Mike does a lot with Arma and several other of our Moto brands. We work with Lucas Oil Pro Motocross to make sure that their ticketing platform is actually allowing us to track conversions and things like that. So he works with other web companies. So Mike works with several of the brands that you're buying from, or maybe you're a fan of, or maybe you're a sister company of, or whatever it is. So when Mike is saying these things, he's not just guessing. These are things we're actually executing and doing for our current customers. Let's talk about web platform, what the website is built on, in other words. So I know there are several folks that have reached out to me over the last 6 to 8 months and talked about, knowing they're not doing the best job with taking their business online, and that's a big goal that they have for next year. And one of the first things we look at when we're bringing a new customer on, even if it's for Facebook ads, Instagram ads, YouTube ads, it's not looking at their Facebook page. Everybody thinks like, hey, should you check my page out? We look at their website. And now more than ever, it's important that if you're going to spend the time and money to build a website, whether you have somebody design it, whether it's us or another web designer, or if you're going to spend what's even more precious is your time to design it yourself. You want it to be on the right platform.
Sure.
There are some platforms that are better than others. There are some that you want to completely stay away from. If you take nothing, before Mike starts going on this, if you take nothing more than just the names that he's saying, write these down. Okay, these are the ones that Mike said are good. These are the ones that he said are bad. If you have questions about it, email me, and Mike can dive a little bit deeper into it. So, Mike, what are the do's and don'ts for web platforms for e-commerce?
For e-commerce, yeah. So my number one, the one that I love the most, is Shopify. In the past few years, they've really taken over the game. They are the market leaders when it comes to pretty much everything e-commerce. BigCommerce has gotten a lot better too. So I'm gonna give a few options for people. We are a registered Shopify developer here. We're a Shopify partner, all that good stuff. And so we prefer the platform. We don't really get kickbacks for recommending any specific software, but with Shopify, we've even designed some apps within there. We do the theme stuff. Now within BigCommerce, the reason that I would say that it's a little bit behind Shopify is because I feel like that business owners can't personalize their site as much on their own as Shopify. Like within Shopify, you can click the customize button within like your theme specifically, and you can just change things about your homepage. You can change things about the layout. You can move things around. And what I've found is business owners don't do that on BigCommerce. They have a theme. Like the developer has made a theme, and that is what they're stuck with. The only way to change the UI really is within the code editor, which they have to hire somebody like me to do.
So when you're saying theme, because there's some people that this is a feat for them to download the app to listen to the podcast, and I respect that. So Mike, when you're saying theme, you're talking about literally how it looks, the design. And when you're saying
a base set of code that determines what the website looks like.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if in your mind you're like, okay, so when Mike codes, he's just punching in numbers and symbols. That's fine. That's how you can think of it. It's a theme it's what Mike and people like Mike do to make a website look the way it looks. Now, when you say UI, you're talking about user interface, right?
Yes.
And that is essentially how they experience the site?
Yeah, it's like what the user sees. When they go to yourwebsite.com, that's what they see. That's the UI, Yep. So this is super like layman term stuff for Mike, but I know it's super interesting for people that just don't understand what goes into a website. And I think the problem is when you hire a vendor, a lot of times it's not explained. Sure. And I think something to keep in mind with why I'm bringing these different characters from this company or from my company on is because we're not just a web design company and we're not just a marketing company. We do both. So Mike, when you're designing a website or fixing somebody else's website, you're looking at it both from the designer standpoint, but also knowing what it's going to take to market. Yeah.
I feel like there's a pretty big separation out there to where somebody might be a great web designer, it might look awesome, but they have no idea that it's not going to convert the traffic that brings there.
Yeah.
And I feel like that wasn't a big deal 10 years ago. If the website looked great, it's awesome, but now so many people buy online that it's almost like you have to have both of those working in conjunction. Would you agree?
Yeah, and I think that a lot of web developers, they'll do fancy things to make the client feel like this is a fancy website. So they used to do things like the parallax, and they just spend a lot of time on that stuff, and it looks nice, but some of the things can make the website heavier. So if they don't take the time to compress images and make the page as fast as possible, then and a lot of the times too, even when they code it, there is a problem where a lot of people write too much JavaScript, or they write too much different coding languages that makes the page size way too big. And it's not for the service of conversions. That's the thing, is when I do a website, I really like to focus on all the time that we build them for, all the time that I spend. I want to spend all that time just focusing on what is going to cause the user to hit that thank you page.
Yeah. That's the customer journey. I guess if we go back to the analogy of the grocery store, the motorcycle dealership, it matters, but spend less time caring about what the first page looks like and understand that the goal is to get them to buy, and that's the checkout page. Now, they all matter, but I feel like that before I knew you, and I've known you for a long time, but in my mind, you get them to the site, and if the site looks good, it's going to take them to where they need to go. But there's different steps. It's like with a Facebook ad or an Instagram ad, there are multiple steps to get them to click and then go and buy. With a website, you're looking at multiple pages. So I guess going back, Shopify is right now, and this always could change in the future, but right now, Shopify is the platform that you feel does the best job on multiple different fronts if somebody's looking at starting or moving to a different platform. Is that right, or is that wrong?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I think both price-wise, speed-wise, just the developer community around Shopify is very good. WordPress used to be a good one, but I don't feel like anymore that it's even in the conversation. I don't. So
for e-commerce or also for informational sites. Both.
Both. I don't like it, and it's not just because of the popularity causing a security issue, which is a problem.
Yeah.
But it's also because there's the constant need to update everything on the site. Whereas in Shopify, if you have a great e-commerce store, you don't have to worry about updating all the individual plugins, and also because the developers are are paid, because most of the apps, like the culture on the Shopify app development is more on like a monthly fee. So like an app might cost $2 a month, $5 a month, $10 a month or whatever, and it gets that developer in there. So you get higher quality developers, because if you're in WordPress, most of the plugins are free.
Yeah.
Very, very few people who use WordPress will pay for any type of plugin. So then you have a lot of abandoned plugins that are unique, that are the only ones that do what they're supposed to do. And that's the problem I have with WordPress, especially when it comes to commerce. So you add WooCommerce to your store, but then like if you have other apps that are like less secure or whatever, it's just I don't like mixing non-security and commerce together.
Yeah, I'm with you. So as we kind of wrap things up, I want you to be able to flex and brag a little bit about on some of the things you've done, because if you do the optimization of your website correctly, or what we call conversion rate optimization, aka CRO, if you do it correctly, it can make astronomical differences in the amount of money that you make. Can you give us an example? We have a client, we're not going to say their name, but you know who I'm talking about, that we just used as an example when bringing on a new CRO client. We showed them this, and they're like, oh my God. You made one small change that made like a 1% difference in the conversion rate, and it generated thousands of dollars that, as you always put it, that is a forever type of a change. It doesn't go away. Now they're always going to have that. Can you explain a little bit about like tell us about that? Like, you know, I did this one thing and it made this much of a difference. Like, the numbers are insane. That's why I really want people to understand how big of a deal it is to get your website correct.
So one thing I want to say that I think will kind of get like the business owners out there excited is the first thing I do when I do CRO is I add a program to the site called Hotjar. Right, so I'm going to give specific software recommendations as I go, but I want to go through exactly what I did to get this result. But stop me if I'm taking too long on
you're good.
On
please.
The story.
This will be the grand finale.
All right, so I'll install Hotjar on a website, and I'll use that data. So when you install Hotjar, you start to get recordings of users visiting the site. You literally can see their mouse moving around on your site. So you put that in there, it starts getting you excited because you're like, wow, I can see users and what like how long they're staying on each page as they're scrolling and all that. So you use all that information, and it also generates heat maps as well. So I don't want to brush over that. So it shows you how far somebody scrolled down on your web page, and that'll tell you how much space you're wasting by having that giant image at the top that takes up the whole phone screen, and then you don't even show them a product until they have to scroll. But then you see only 60% of people scroll, and it kind of lights a fire under you to say, okay, well, imagine that 40% of people that is not seeing my product,
if they would have scrolled,
they would have scrolled,
so
how much more money would I make doing that?
Then you'll make an adjustment to make that smaller.
Right. So once you install Hotjar, that's what you use to find like your hypothesis, your idea as to what the problem is, right? Like you come up with an idea, and then you make the change on your website based on that information you saw in Hotjar, and then you test to see whether it was correct. So in this case, in the specific one you were asking about, I made a change to a client's website where I just changed the slider, the image that appears when you first visit the site.
Yeah,
that's a slider. Yeah.
Yep.
I just wanted to define it.
I'm just making sure that I really break it down for the people that are like, I don't get this.
If it's a slider, like, it'll transition between images, but most people do have that at the top, at the very beginning of the site where it flushes through. So anyways, I redesigned it. So what I did was I had a lot of meetings about the client and their top salespeople, like the people who can sell the product really well. And I asked them a bunch of questions like, what causes people to buy this? Like, I pretended like I wanted to train to be part of their team, a salesperson on their team, because that's what I'm doing on their website. I'm basically a salesperson that's working on their team. So, and they determined like these are the unique selling points of our product versus the other ones. And I started reading some forums of some people who were discussing the product. And I was like, okay, this is like the niche that this product fills. And this image is not serving that niche that's like there. So I basically changed it. I redesigned the image and I split tested it with the original. Now the uplift was so great in this client's, thing that it was generating a lot. I don't know if you want me to say
you can say the number. They don't know who it is, so that's why.
Yeah. So the difference quantifiably should be around $15,000 a month difference. And that's where it's looking like.
I knew that number every time you say that.
I know and it's such a small change, but when you amplify it to the amount of people, to the amount of traffic. Say your conversion rate is 2%, right? If you double that conversion rate, then mathematically you double your revenue. Yeah. That's how that works.
That's one change that Mike made. And look, this isn't to sell the service. Like, it's the supply and demand on this service, like, Mike does this all himself. So even if you came running to us and said, please do this to my site, we cannot even take everybody that wants to do this. Like, it's really, like, it's a rigorous interview process to even get accepted for this. So this is not a pitch to buy this service. This is something to try to inspire you. Like, take the time and look at the nitty gritty details. Yeah. Because that's $180,000 a year difference. Yeah. From one small adjustment that Mike made by looking at what people were doing, researching the product, researching what consumers are saying about the product, and then making a small change. $180,000 a year difference. Yeah. Insane.
And they get to keep that difference like forever. That's the cool thing is. And it makes their marketing efforts more effective too. Because all of a sudden now they can bid more on showing up on different Facebook ads or different Google ads because their average, the average person that visits the site is twice as likely to buy. So then they're like, now we can bid twice as much on our ads, and now our stuff snowballs. So there's so much. I wanted to also include, just for the tech savvy people out there, there is one other step of the process that I omitted, and that is Google Optimize. So that's the actual software that I use to do the split testing. So I use Hotjar to record people to get my hypothesis together, but when I want to test that idea as to why I think people aren't converting, I use Google Optimize to do it. I just wanted to include that for the people that wanted to hear it.
Well, and again, for anybody that is savvy enough to take this on, more power to you. That's why we wanted to do this. So even if there's one person that's listening that's like, hey, I'm going to take what Mike said, that's why we wanted to do this. Even though, like I said, we can't, like, if there's like 20 people that are knocking on our door to work with Mike tomorrow, we can't work with those 20 people. It's really specific before we can work with you. If you try to do this on your own, tag us, email me. I'd love to see what difference you were able to make from Mike's episode. If you're able to test something and try something and it makes a difference, it would make Mike's year if you sent that over and said, hey, I tried what Mike said and it did this. Please share that. Yeah. We bring a lot of guests to you guys on this show that they just share their story. And yes, it's called the Moto Marketing Podcast, and it's become more of the business of moto type of a show. But I at least once a year want to be able to bring you guys some really marketing heavy stuff that I think will help. We love to try to help as many people in this business as we can, from those that actually pay to work with us to you guys that listen to this show. And everybody that's going to come on from the company and share information with you, it's valuable information, but I can tell you for a fact what Mike has to share, just that one thing right there is something that could make a world of a difference. I mean, again, this one client, this was one adjustment. Mike's going to make more. That equaled $180,000 a year for
that was the biggest win. Obviously, we're going to talk about the biggest win.
Yeah, exactly. But, I mean, we're going to talk about something. We're going to talk about the big one, right?
Right.
Mike, I appreciate it, man. It's always, you and I do a lot together in this company, and it's always fun working with you. And you do some really cool things with clients. Clients love working with Mike. So yeah, I appreciate you being on the show and sharing that information. And again, if you guys have questions, shoot me an email. It's luke@thinkimpact.com. It's impact with a K. So it's luke@thinkimpact.com. Send me a question. Send me what you guys are trying and how it's working for you. I'll share it with Mike and might even get Mike to give you some feedback. So I appreciate you guys listening, and we'll catch you next week on the Moto Marketing Podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Moto Marketing Podcast. If your goal is to get real, measurable results from your marketing that will grow your company revenue, then check out how Impakt Media can get the same results that they have for Moto's most iconic brands by visiting thinkimpact.com. That's THINKIMPAKT.com. Have a marketing question that you want answered on the show? Send your questions to questions@motomarketingpodcast.com. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. And we'll catch you on the next episode of the Moto Marketing Podcast.